the House, and I'll call on Senator John Kelly to move his motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to welcome Jan as well to the House. Minister, I'm looking for a moratorium on future wind farm developments, and I have 3 reasons for doing that. I will explain them to you in a minute. Myself and Senator John Whelan have been beating this drum about wind farm developments for the last 14 months. All we're trying to achieve is that people get back their own human right to live in peace and tranquility in their community without having to live beside and with the effects of wind turbines. That's why I introduced a bill last February, 12 months, that got through the House here with flying colours and didn't get the support outside of that. Now, the first reason that I'm looking for a moratorium is that the decision of the EU Court of Justice strongly indicate that the state may be liable for the adverse effects of wind farms granted planning permission between 1999 and 2012. This is because the state completely failed to implement Article 3 of the 1985 Environmental Impact Assessment Directive, which was supposed to apply to wind farms since 1999. The EIA directive was agreed by all EU member states, including Ireland, so that any project within the EU that has an impact on the environment would be consistently subject to an independent environmental impact assessment by the competent planning authority. The competent planning authority must not only describe but also investigate, analyse the direct and indirect effects of the project on all of the following specified factors: human beings, fauna, flora, soil, water, air, climate, landscape, material assets and cultural heritage. And sadly, there has been no regard to people's human rights, to the landscape, or indeed people's material assets. Apart from the obligation on developers to do the EIS, there is also a legal obligation on the local authorities to do this independent environmental impact assessment. And what had been happening is that planners within local authorities had been doing it themselves. That was deemed to be illegal. The second reason I'm looking for the moratorium is the decision of the EU Court of Justice on the 14th of March 2012, the Lett versus Austria case, that failure to implement Article 3 of the EU IA directive can lead to state liability in the case of property devaluation. And I got a consultant to have a look at this, and he has estimated that we could be talking about compensation to the tune of 1 billion already for developments that have been granted planning permission that are not compliant with the EU directive. And I wonder, Minister, who's going to pay this bill? The third reason I want a moratorium is that we are currently reviewing the guidelines that pertain to wind farm developments. And as a result of the fact that there is an acceptance that they're out of date because they're used on 1980 material, I do believe that the heels are being dragged on this issue on the review of the guidelines, and for that reason I am asking you again to implement a moratorium. Also, I would also say that as regards the non-compliance, from the Minister for Energy's point of view, seeing that there are all of them have been non-compliant, I think it's important that the Minister for Energy and Communication write to all of these developers that got planning permission and ask them, can they now comply with the EU directive? And if they write and say that they cannot, because they clearly cannot, then I think it's incumbent on the Minister to withdraw the refit funding under EU and environmental law that's in his gift. And just to summarise, in relation to the spin that has been surrounding all of these wind farm proposed developments around the country, and in particular in the Midlands, about 4 or 5 months ago, the announcement was 66,000 jobs to be created. 2 weeks ago in the Irish Times, that was refined to 2,000 jobs. And tomorrow's Irish Times will tell you that there'll be hundreds of jobs created in this project. So it's spin all the way with the, when it comes to the wind energy sector. So, Minister, I think we're being sold a pup, and I think that people now right across the country are beginning to wise up to it. There will be a serious revolt to these plans, that unless we take the lives of people into consideration and take the landscape, respect both of them, there will be a problem. And this requires the wind energy sector to do their business in a far more transparent way. And we do have a duty as well, Minister, to the taxpayer, and we most certainly don't need another Army Deafness case. And this is what's coming down the track unless we deal with this the right way.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Minister.
Well, I'd like to thank the Senator for raising the issue, and I know Senator Kelly has had a very keen interest in this whole area. The Wind Energy Development Guidelines, June 2006, provide advice to planning authorities on catering for wind energy through the development plan process. The guidelines are also intended to ensure a consistency of approach throughout the country in the identification of suitable locations for wind energy development and the treatment of planning applications for such developments. In order to ensure that Ireland continues to meet its renewable energy targets and at the same time that wind energy does not have negative impacts on local communities, my department, in conjunction with the Department of Communications, Energy and Natural Resources and other stakeholders, is undertaking a targeted review of certain aspects of the Wind Energy Guidelines of 2006. This focused review will examine the manner in which the guidelines address key issues of community concern such as noise and proximity. All statutory planning guidelines issue first in draft form for a public consultation over a period of a couple of months. Once the consultation period is closed, the submissions received on the draft guidelines are considered and taken into account in the final form of the guidelines. The draft guidelines will, like all other new or revised guidelines, go out for extensive public consultation for a period of 6 weeks to 2 months. The indicative timetable for the publication of the draft guidelines is Q3 or Q4 of 2013. Planning is a dynamic policy area and there are over 25 sets of ministerial policy guidance in place at present, including the guidance on wind energy developments. At any given time, my department is therefore likely either to be in the process of updating existing guidance or developing new guidance. Typically, there is a lead-in of several months between publication of draft guidance for public consultation and the publication of final guidance, taking into account the submissions received. Examples of recent such processes include updated statutory guidance on retail planning in April 2012, development contributions in January 2013 and guidance on carrying out environmental impact assessment in March 2013. The imposition of a moratorium on retail development, the levying of development contributions or development requiring environmental impact assessment pending publication of the final guidance would clearly have been inappropriate, and therefore, unfortunately, Senator, I don't think it is appropriate or indeed necessary to impose a moratorium on planning applications for wind energy development at this time.
Thank you, Minister.
I'll be brief, Minister. I appreciate, Minister, that you have set about having a review of the guidelines that are there at the moment. We'll only have to wait and see what comes of that. But just to say, you know, I know we have targets for green energy and all of that, but what we have done so far, since from 1999 to 2012, November 2012, we have done this in defiance of EU directives. That's what we've done. And this is the problem, that we're clearly leaving ourselves open to be sued. Both the developer and the local authority and the government are going to be sued. And I can tell you, I've already been told that anything, you know, that house prices are going to be devalued somewhere between 20% and 50%. There's only a couple of ways that can be dealt with it, as I said to you, and that is, number one, County Council can decide to revoke planning permission. It's within their gift. And secondly, the Minister to withdraw refit funding where EU directives have been breached. So I think it's important that he be informed of that. At least I have it on the record of the House now, anyway, Minister. So,
just thank the Senator, and I do realise that these are important points, and we will examine them all. And clearly, the voice of the community will be heard as well in the consultation process.
thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Minister. Thank you.